Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to Poets Corner, brought to you by on BTC-TV, Channel 13, and I am your host, Ben Woostenberg. Yes, I will be reading to you from the Canterbury Tales, The Miller's Tale. And hopefully I can do this a lot better than I just did the previous two attempts because, oh my goodness, that sounded so bad. So, we're going to try again, and let's just cut to the chase, shall we? Alrighty then. Once on a time there was dwelling at Oxford a wealthy lout who took in guests to board, and of his craft he was a carpenter. A poor scholar was lodging with him there, who'd learned the arts, but all his fantasy was turned to study of astrology, and knew a certain set of theorems, and could find out by various stratagems if men but asked of him in certain hours when they should have drought or else have showers, or if men asked of him what should befall to anything. I cannot reckon them all. This clerk was called the clever Nicholas. Of secret loves he knew, and of their solace, and he kept counsel too, for he was sly and meek as any maiden passing by. He had a chamber that was in that hostelry, and lived alone there, without company, all garnished with sweet herbs of good repute, and he himself sweet-smelling as the root of licorice, valerian, or setwall. His almagest and books, both great and small, his astrolabe belonging to his arts, his algorithm stones all laid apart on shelves that ranged beside his lone bed's head. His press was covered with cloths of red, and over all there lay a solistry, whereon he made an evening's melody, playing so sweet that the chamber rang, and Angelus ad Virginum he sang, and after that he warbled the king's note. Often in good voice was his merry throat. And thus this gentle clerk his leisure spends, supported by some income and his friends. This carpenter had lately wed a wife, whom he loved better than he loved his life, and she was come to 18 years of age. Jealous he was, and held her close in cage, for she was wild and young, and he was old, and deemed himself as like to be cuckold. He knew not Cato, for his lore was rude, that vulgar man should wed similitude. A man should wed according to estate, for youth and age are often in debate. But now, since he had fallen in the snare, he must endure, like other folks, his care. Fair was this beautiful wife, and therewithal as weasels were her body slim and small. A girdle wore she, barred and striped of silk, an apron too, as white as morning milk. About her loins, and full of many a gore, white was her smock, embroidered all before and even behind. Her collar round about of coal-black silk, on both sides in and out. The strings of the white cap upon her head were, like her collar, black silk worked with thread. Her fillet was a wide silk worn full high, and certainly she had a liquorish eye. She'd thinned out carefully her eyebrows too, and they were arched and black as any sloe. She was a far more pleasant thing to see than is the newly budded young pear tree, and softer than wool is on the weather. Down from her girdle hung a purse of leather, tasseled with silk, with latin heading down, and all this world, searching it up and down, so gay a little doll, I well believe, or such a wench, there's no man can conceive. Far brighter was the brilliance of her hue than in the tower the gold coins minted new, and songs came shrilling from her pretty head, as from the swallows sitting on a shed. Therewith she danced too, and could play and sham like any kid or calf about its dam. Her mouth was sweet as braggot or as mead, or hoard his apples laid in hay or weed. Skittish she was, as is a pretty colt, tall as a staff and straight as crossbow bolt. A brooch she wore upon her collar low, as broad as boss of buckler did it show. Her shoes laced up to where a girl's legs thicken. She was a primrose and a tender chicken, for any lord to lay upon his bed, or yet for any good yeoman to wed. Now, sir, and then, sir, to befall the case that on a day this clever Nicholas fell in with this young wife to toy and play, and while her husband was down Osney way, clerks being as crafty as the best of us, and unperceived he caught her by the puss, saying, Indeed, unless I have my will for secret love of you, sweetheart, I'll spill, and held her hand about the hips, and howl, and said, Oh, darling, love me now, or I shall die, and pray you God may save. And she leaped up as a colt does in the trave, and with her head she twisted fast away, and said, I will not kiss you by my fay. Why, let go, she cried, let go, Nicholas, or I will call for help, and cry, Alas! Do take your hands away for courtesy. This Nicholas for mercy then did cry, and spoke so well, and importuned her so fast, that she her love did grant him at the last, and swore her oath by St. Thomas of Kent that she would be his content, as soon as opportunity she could spy. My husband is so full of jealousy. Unless you will await me secretly, I know I'm just as good as dead, said she. And you must keep all quite hidden in this case. Nay, thereof worry not, said Nicholas. A clerk has lazily employed his while, if I cannot a carpenter beguile. And thus they were agreed. And then they swore to wait a while, as I have said before. When Nicholas had done this every whit, and patted her about the loins a bit, he kissed her sweetly, took her solistry, and played it fast, and made a melody. Then fell it thus, that to the parish kirk the Lord Christ Jesus' own works for to work, this good wife went upon a holy day. Her forehead shone as bright as does the May, so well she wished it when she left off work. Now there was of that church a parish clerk, whose name was, as folks called him, Absalom. Curled was his hair, shining like gold, and from his head spread fanwise in a thick, bright mop. 'Twas parted straight, and even on the top. His cheeks were red, his eyes grey as a goose, with St. Paul's windows cut upon his shoes. He stood in red hose, fitting famously, and as he was clothed full well and properly, all in a coat of blue, in which were let holes for the lacings, which were fairly set, and over all he wore in fine surplice, as white as ever hawthorn spray, and nice, a merry lad he was, so God me save. As well could he let blood, cut hair, and shave, and draw a deed, and a quitclaim, as might chance. In 20 manners could he trip and dance, after the school that reigned in Oxford, though, and with his 2 legs swinging to and fro, and he could play upon a violin. Thereto he sang in treble voice and thin, and as well could he play on his guitar. In all the town no inn was, and no bar, that he'd not visited to make good cheer, especially were lively barmaids there. But, truth to tell, he was a bit squeamish of farting and of language, haughty-ish. This Absalom, who was so light and gay, went with a censer on the holy day, scenting the wives like an enthusiast, and on them many a loving look he cast, especially on the carpenter's good wife. To look at her he thought a merry life. So she was pretty, sweet, and liquorous. I dare well say, if she had been a mouse, and he a cat, he would have mauled her some. This parish clerk, this lively Absalom, held in his heart now such a such a longing that from no wife took he an offering. For courtesy, he said he would take none. The moon, when it was night, full brightly shone, and his guitar did Absalom then take. For in love watching he'd intent to wake, and forth he went, jolly and amorous, until he came unto the carpenter's house, and a little after the cock began to crow. He took his stand beneath a shot window that was led into the good woodwright's wall. He sang then, in his pleasant voice and small, "O now, dear lady, if your will it be, I pray that you will have some ruth on me." The words in harmony with his string plucking, this carpenter woke and heard him sing, and called unto his wife and said in sum, "What, Alison, do you hear Absalom, who plays and sings beneath our bedroom wall?" And she said to her husband therewithal, "Yes, God knows, John, I hear it, truth to tell." So this went on. What is there better than well? For from day to day this pretty Absalom so wooed her, he was woebegone therefrom. He lay awake all night and all the day. He combed his spreading hair and dressed him gay. By go-betweens and agents too wooed he, and swore her loyal page he'd ever be. He sang as tremulously as nightingale, and he sent her sweetened wine and well-spiced ale, and waffles piping hot out of the fire, and, she being town-bred, mead for her desire. For some are won by means of money spent, and some by tricks, and some by long descent. Once, to display his versatility, he acted Herod on a scaffold high. But what availed him in any case? She was enamored so of Nicholas that Absalom might go and blow his horn. He got naught for his labor, but her scorn. And thus she made of Absalom her ape, and all his earnestness she made a jape. For truth is in this proverb, and no lie. Men say well thus, it's always he that's high that makes the absent lover seem a sloth. For now, though Absalom be wildly wroth, because he is so far out of her sight, this handy Nicholas stands in his light. Now bear you well, you clever Nicholas, for Absalom will wail and sing, alas! And so it chanced that on a Saturday this carpenter departed to Osney, and clever Nicholas and Alison were well agreed to this effect, anon that Nicholas should put in play a while the simple jealous husband to beguile. And if it chanced the game should go aright, she was to sleep within his arms all night, for this was his desire and hers also. Presently then, and without more ado, this Nicholas no longer did he tarry, but softly to his chamber did he carry both food and drink, to last at least a day, saying that to her husband she should say, if he should come to ask for Nicholas, why, she should say she knew not where he was, for all day she'd not seen him, far or nigh. She thought he must have got some malady, because in vain her maid would knock and call, he'd answer not, whatever might befall. And so it was that all that Saturday this Nicholas quietly in chamber lay, and ate and slept and did what pleased him best, till Sunday, when the sun had gone to rest. This simple man with wonder heard the tale, and marvelled that their Nicholas might ail, and said, I am afraid, by St. Thomas, that everything's not well with Nicholas. God send he be not dead so suddenly. This world is most unstable. Certainly I saw today the corpse being borne to kirk of one who but last Monday was at work. Go up, said he unto his boy anon, call at his door, or knock there with a stone. Learn how it is, and boldly come tell me. The servant went up then, right sturdily, and at the chamber door, the while he stood, he cried and knocked as any man would. What? How? What do you, Master Nicolay? How come you sleep through all the livelong day? But all for naught. He never heard a word. A hole he found low down upon a board, through which the house cat had been wont to creep, and to that hole he stooped, and through did peep, and finally he ranged him in his sight that this Nicholas sat gasping there upright. And if he looked too long in the new moon, downstairs he went and told his master soon in what array he'd found this self-same man. This carpenter to cross himself began, and said, Now help us, holy Friedweidel. Little a man can know what shall betide. This man is fallen with his astronomy into some madness or some agony. I always feared that somehow this would be. Men should not meddle in God's privity. Blessed always be the ignorant man whose creed is all he ever has to scan. So fared another clerk with astronomy. He walked into the meadows for to pry, into the stars to learn what should befall, until into a clapet he did fall. He saw that not, but yet by St. Thomas, I'm sorry for this clever Nicholas. He shall be scolded for his studying. Not too late, by Jesus, heaven's King. Get me a staff that I may pry before, the while you, Robin, heave against the door. Will take him from his studying, I guess. And on the chamber door then he did press. His servant was a stout lad, if a dunce, and by the hasp he heaved it up at once. Upon the floor the portal fell anon. This Nicholas sat there, still as stone, gazing with gaping mouth straight up in air. This carpenter thought he was in despair, and took him by the shoulders mightily, and shook him hard, and cried out vehemently, What, Nicolay? How now? Come, look down, awake, and think on Jesus' death and crown. I cross you from all elves magic wights. And then the night spell set he out by rights, and the four corners of the house about, and all the threshold of the door without. O Jesus Christ and good Saint Benedict, protect this house from all that may afflict. For the night hag, the white paternoster, what hast thou gone, St. Peter's sister? And at that last, this clever Nicholas began to sigh full sore, and said, Alas, shall all the world be lost so soon again? This carpenter replied, What say you then? What? Think on God as we do, men that swink. This Nicholas replied, Go fetch me drink, and afterwards I'll tell you privately a certain thing concerning you and me, and tell it to no other man or men. This carpenter went down and came again, and brought a potent ale, a brimming quart. And when each one of them had drunk his part, Nicholas shut the door fast, and with that he drew a seat, and near the carpenter sat. He said, Now, John, my good host, lief and dear, you must upon your true faith swear right here that no man will you this word betray, for it is Christ's own word that I will say, and if you tell a man, you're ruined quite. This punishment shall come to you of right, that if you're traitor, you'll go mad, and should. Nay, Christ forbid it, for his holy blood. Then said the simple man, I am no blab, no, nor, though I say it, am I fond of gab. Say what you will, I will it tell to I never will it tell to child or wife by him that harried hell. Now, John, said Nicholas, I will not lie, but I found out from my astrology, as I have looked upon the moon so bright, that now, come Monday next, at 9 of night, shall fall a rain so wildly mad as would have been by half greater than Noah's flood. This world, he said, in less time than an hour shall all be drowned. So terrible is this shower, thus shall all mankind drown and lose all life. The carpenter replied, Alas, my wife, and shall she drown? Alas, my Alison, for grief of this he almost fell. Anon, he said, Is there no remedy in this case? Why, yes. Good luck, said clever Nicholas. If you will work by counsel of the wise, you must not act on what your wits advise, for so says Solomon, and it's all true, work by advice, and thou shalt never rue. And if you'll act as counselled and not fail, I undertake, without a mast or sail, to save all us. I, you, and her, and me. Haven't you heard of Noah? How saved was he because our Lord had warned him how to keep out of the flood that covered the earth so deep? Yes, said this carpenter, long years ago. Have you not heard, asked Nicholas, also the sorrows of Noah and his fellowship in getting his wife to go aboard the ship? He would have rather, I dare undertake, at that time, for all the weather black, that she had one ship for herself alone. Therefore, do you know what best be done? This thing needs haste, and of a hasty thing men must not preach, nor do long tarrying. Presently go and fetch here to this inn a kneading tub or brewing vat, and win on each of us, but see that they are large, wherein we may swim out, as in a barge, and have therein sufficient food and drink for one day only. That's enough, I think. The water will dry up and flow away about the prime of the succeeding day. But Robin must not know of this, your knave, or even Jill, your maid. I may not save, ask me not why, for though you do not ask me, I will not tell you of God's privity. Suffice you then, unless your wits are mad, to have as great a grace as Noah had. Your wife I shall not lose, nor there is no doubt. Go now your way, and speedily get about. But when you have, for you and her and me, procured these kneading tubs or beer vats 3, then you shall hang them near the roof tree high, that no man our purveyance may espy. And when you thus have done, as I have said, I have put in our drink, and meat and bread, also an axe to cut the ropes in two when the flood comes, that we may float and go, and cut a hole high up upon the gable, upon the garden side over the stable, that we may freely pass forth on our way when the great rain and flood are gone that day. Then shall you float as merrily, I'll stake, as does the white duck after the white drake. Then I will call, Ho, Alison, ho, John, be cheery, for the flood will pass anon, and you will say, Hail, Master Nicolay, good morrow, I see you well, for it is day. And then shall we be barons over all life, over all the world, like Noah and his wife. But of one thing I warn you now, outright, be well advised that on that very night, when we have reached our ships and got aboard, no one of us must speak or whisper word, nor call nor cry, but sit in silent prayer, for this is God's own bidding. Hence, don't dare. Your wife and you must hang apart, and in that the night shall come, and no chance for you to sin either in looking or in carnal deed. These orders I have told to you. Go, Godspeed. Tomorrow night, when all men are asleep, into our kneading tubs we 3 will creep, and sit there, still, waiting God's high grace. Go now your way, I have no longer space of time to make a longer sermoning. Men thus say, send the wise and say no thing. You are so wise it needs not that I teach. Go, save our lives, and that I do beseech. This silly carpenter went on his way. Often he cried, alas, and well away. And to his wife he told all privately, that she was better taught thereof than he, how all this rigmarole was to apply. Nevertheless she acted as she'd die, and said, alas, go on your way anon, help us escape, or we are lost, each one. I am your true and lawfully wedded wife. Go, my dear spouse, and help to save our life. Lo, what a great thing is affection found. Men die of imagination, I'll be bound. So deep an imprint may the spirit take, this hapless carpenter began to quake. He thought now, verily, that he could see old Noah's flood come wallowing like the sea, to drown his Alison, his honey dear. He wept, he wailed, he made but sorry cheer. He sighed, and made full many a sob and sigh. He went and got himself a kneading trough, and after that 2 tubs, and some were found, and in his dwelling privately sent round, and hung them near the roof all secretly. With his own hand then made he ladders 3, to climb up by the rungs thereof, it seems, to reach the tubs left hanging to the beams, and those he victualled, tubs and kneading trough, with bread and cheese and good jugged ale, enough to satisfy the needs of one full day. And ere he put all this in such array, he sent his servants, boy and maid, right down upon some errand into London town. And on the Monday, when it came on night, he shut his door without a candlelight, and ordered everything as it should be. And shortly after, up they climbed, all 3. They sat while one might plough a furlong way. Now, our father, hush, said Nicolay, and hush, said John, and hush, said Alison. This carpenter, his loud devotions done, sat silent, saying mentally a prayer, and waiting for the rain to hear it there. The death-like sleep of utter weariness fell on this good woodwright, even, as I guess, about the curfew time, or little more, for travail of his spirit he groaned sore, and soon he snored, for badly his head lay. Down by the ladder crept this Nicolay, and Alison right softly down she sped. Without more words they went and got in bed, even where the carpenter was wont to lie. There was the revel and the melody. And thus lie Alison and Nicholas in joy that goes by many an alias, until the bells for lauds began to ring, and friars to the chancel went to sing. This parish clerk, this amorous Absalom, whom love had made so woebegone and dumb, upon the Monday was down Osney way with company to find some sport and play, and there he chanced to ask a cloisterer privately after John the carpenter. This monk drew him apart out of the kirk, and said, I have not seen him here at work since Saturday. I think well that he went for timber, that the abbot has him sent, for he is wont for timber thus to go, remaining at the grange a day or so, or else he's surely at his house today, but which it is I cannot truly say. This Absalom right happy was and light, and thought, now is the time to wake all night, for certainly I saw him not stirring about his door since the day began to spring. So may I thrive, as I shall, at cock's crow, knock cautiously upon that window low, which is so placed upon his bedroom wall. To Alison then will I tell of all my long loving, and thus I shall not miss that At the least, I shall have her lips to kiss. Some sort of comfort shall I have, I say. My mouth's been itching for this livelong day, all this livelong day. That is a sign of kissing at the least. All night I dreamed too. I was at a feast. Therefore I'll go and sleep 2 hours away all this night. Till then I wake and play. And so, when time of first cock-crow was come, up rose this merry lover, Absalom, and dressed him gay and all at point device. But first he chewed some licorice and spice, so he'd smell sweet ere he had combed his hair. Under his tongue some bits of true love's rare, for thereby thought he to be more gracious. He went then to the carpenter's dark house, and stood silent beneath the shot window, until his breast it reached, it was so low, and coughed softly in a low, soft half tone. What do you, honeycomb, sweet Allison, my cinnamon, my fair bird, my sweetie, awake, O darling mine, and speak to me. It's little thought you give me, and my woe, who for your love do sweat where'er I go. Yet it's no wonder that I faint and sweat, as long as does the lamb for his mother's teat. Truly, sweetheart, I have such love longing that like a turtle doves my true yearning, and I can't eat no more than can a maid. Go from the window, jackanapes, she said, for s'help me God, it is not come to kiss me. I love another, or to blame I'd be better than you, by Jesus. Absalom, go on your way, or I'll stone you therefrom, and let me sleep, the fiends take you away. Alas, quoth Absalom, and well away, that truer love ever was so ill beset. But kiss me, since you'll do no more, my pet, for Jesus' love, and for the love of me. Will you go then on your way? Asked she. Yes, truly, darling, said this Absalom. Then make you ready, she said, and I'll come. And unto Nicholas she said, Lo and still, be silent now, and you shall laugh your fill. This Absalom plumped down upon his knees, and said, I am a lord in all degrees, for after this there may better still. Darling, my sweetest bird, I wait your will. The window she unbarred, and that in haste. Have done, she said she, come on, and do it fast, before we're seen by any neighbor's eye. This Absalom did wipe his mouth all dry. Dark was the night as pitch, all dark as coal, and through the window she put out her hole, and Absalom no better felt nor worse, but with his mouth he kissed her naked arse, right greedily before he knew of this. Aback he leapt, it seemed somehow amiss, for well he knew a woman has no beard. He felt the thing all rough and longish-haired, and said, Oh, fie, alas, what did I do? Tee-hee, she laughed, and clapped the window to. And Absalom went forth a merry pace. A beard, cried clever Nicholas. Now, by God's corpus, this goes fair and well, this hapless Absalom. He heard that yell, and on his lips for anger he did bite. And to himself he said, I will requite. Who vigorously rubbed and scrubbed his lips with dust, with sand, with straw, with cloth, with chips. But Absalom, and often cried, Alas, my soul I give now unto Sansanath, for rather farther than own this town, said he, for this despite it's well revenged I'd be. Alas, said he, from her I never blenched. His hot love was grown cold, aye, and all quenched, for from that moment that he kissed her arse, for paramours he didn't care a curse, for he was healed of all his malady. Indeed, all paramours did he defy, and wept as does a child that has been beat. With silent step he went across the street until a smith, whom men called Dan Jarvis, who in his smithy forged plough parts, that is, he sharpened shares and coulters busily. This Absalom he knocked all easily, and said, "Unbar here, Jarvis, for I come." "What? Who are you?" "It is I. It's Absalom." "What? Absalom, for Jesus Christ's sweet tree. Why are you up so early, BNCT? What ails you now, man? Some gay girl, God knows, has brought you on the jumps to my bellows. By Saint Neot, you know well what I mean." This Absalom cared not a single bean for all his play, nor word back he gave. He'd more toe on his distaff that had this knave than Jarvis knew. And said he, "Friend so dear, this red-hot coulter in the fireplace here, lend it to me. I have need for it, and I'll return it after just a bit." Jarvis replied, "Certainly. Were it gold or a purse filled with yellow coins untold, you should have it, as I am true smith. But Christ's foe, what will you do therewith?" "Let that," said Absalom, "be as it may. I'll tell you on the morrow, when it's day." And caught the coulter then by the cold steel, and softly from the smithy door did steal, and went again up to the woodwright's wall, and coughed at first, and then he knocked withal upon the window, as before, with care. This Absalom replied, "Now, who is there?" This Alison replied, "Who is there? And who knocks so? I'll warrant it's a thief." "Why, no," quoth he, "God knows, my sweet rose-leaf, I am your Absalom, my own darling. Of gold," quoth he, "I have brought you a ring. My mother gave it to me, as I'll be saved. Fine gold it is, and it is well engraved. This will I give you for another kiss." This Nicholas had risen for a piss. He thought that it would carry on the jape to have his arse kissed by this jackanapes, and so he opened the window hastily and put his arse out thereat quietly over the buttocks, showing the whole bum. And thereto said the clerk, this Absalom, "Oh, speak, sweet bird, I know not where thou art." This Nicholas just then let fly a fart, as loud as it had been a thunderclap, and well nigh blinded Absalom, poor chap. But he was ready with his iron hot, and Nicholas right in the arse he got. Off went the skin a hand's breadth broad about. The coulter burned his bottom so throughout that for the pain he thought that he should die, and like one mad he started in to cry, "Help! Water, water, help! For God's sakes, for God's dear heart." This carpenter went out of his sleep did start, hearing that water, cried as madman would, and thought, "Alas, now comes down Noah's flood." He struggled up without another word, and with his axe he cut into the cord, and down went all. He did not stop to trade in bread or ale till he'd the journey made, and there upon the floor he swooning lay. And up started Alison and Nicolay, and shouted, "Help!" and "Hello!" down the street. The neighbors, great and small, with hastening feet, swarmed in the house to stare upon this man who lay yet swooning, and all pale and wan. For in the falling he had smashed his arm. He had to suffer too another harm, for when he spoke he was at once borne down by clever Nicholas and Alison, for they told everyone that he was odd, and he was so much afraid of Noel's flood. Through fantasy and out of vanity he'd gone and bought these kneading tubs, all three, and that he'd hung them near the roof above, and that he had prayed them, and for God's dear love, to sit with him, to bear him company. The people laughed at all this fantasy. Up to the roof they looked, and there did gape, and so turned all his injury to a jape. For when the carpenter got in word, 'twas all in vain, no man his reason heard. With oaths impressive, he was so sworn down, that he was held for mad by all the town. For every clerk did side with every other. They said, the man is crazy, my dear brother. For every one did laugh at all this strife. Thus fluttered was the carpenter's good wife, for all his watching and his jealousy. And Absalom had kissed her nether eye, and Nicholas is branded on the butt. The tale is done, God save all the rut. Thus ends the miller's tale. Well, that was not very well done, in my opinion. It was rather struggle. I'll try it later, maybe. I don't know. But after that, we have the Reeves prologue. There we are. So, yeah. So, there we go. Here we go now. Oh, sorry, bad. Let me see. We have 42 minutes almost. That's not as long as it had been. Okay. So I'm going to say adieu. I have to call my wife because we have to go voting too. And now I'm talking in rhyme and in pantomime. Just out of time. Oh, stop it. Anyways, I'll be back. I will be back on Thursday. I will be reading another. Okay. I'm going to say adieu. It is 12:30 Monday afternoon. Oh no, it started to rain. I can see out the window there. And I'm going to say arrivederci, ciao for now. I will see you next week. No, next Thursday. Same bat time and the same bat channel. I haven't said that in a while. And here we go. Be of good cheer and have a good day. Ciao.